Welcome back to Through the Veil with Elle and Camille. I'm Camille.
I'm Elle.
And this is the podcast where we seek to demystify, develop, and celebrate our spiritual gifts through a faith-based lens. And today we are so excited to have Carolyn Cooper with us today. Carolyn, can you introduce yourself to us, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm super happy to be here. I'm Carolyn. I run Simply Align, and that's an energy healing modality, among other things. But I'm happy to be here and talk to you about that today.
She's been doing this for quite some time now. How many years do you think you've been in the business, Carolyn?
Well, I know because I started learning it when my 33-year-old boy was 3 years old. So 30 years, but I've actually put my first website online and started it when my youngest was 2 years old. Like I remember things with my kids' ages. So 21 years I've been doing it, like have a website, do it online. People come to classes and sessions.
Amazing. That's quite a bit of experience that I'm really excited to tap from you in this conversation.
Yeah, you're kind of an OG in the field, I feel. So
Yeah, yeah, you've been in it definitely for a lot longer than me or Camille, so we're gonna bow to your expertise.
yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'll do my best, but
So, would you like to share with us your story here for a second, Carolyn? Like how did you get into the field of energy work? How did you find it, first of all? I mean, back when you were probably learning about all these modalities, it's before the internet, it was before the dissemination of information was everywhere in the way that it is today. How did you stumble upon this as a modality?
like in the late 1990s.
Yeah,
I didn't have a computer and I couldn't find books about it.
no
Well,
cell phones.
yeah, I think you two would probably agree with this about yourselves too, but I feel like I came into this world just a curious soul. Like I just want to take a little of everything and enjoy it and digest it and assimilate it. And so I've always been very curious. I was raised, my dad was a chiropractor in a small town where people loved him or thought it was really weird. So I said that in a podcast I recently did. I got a really thick skin pretty early on to that, and it didn't bother me if other people didn't understand it and didn't agree with it, because I just figured, well, they don't know enough about it to, they're making a decision based on something else they heard. I love self-help. I love personal development. I was a young mom with little kids, reading a lot of books, and I felt like there is something, even in college. I never graduated college. I got married. I'm totally fine with that. But I didn't because I felt like I was wasting my time. Like I can't find what it is I'm supposed to do. I don't think it's here. Just nothing floated my boat. I just I couldn't find the right thing. So when I'm trying to think, I had lots of different doors open to me, to, lots of little windows of here's a little taste of it and here's a little taste. I had a lot of little sample things along the way, and every one of them I learned from and I was excited about. For example, um, when I taught fitness for like 20 something years. And I was in Florida one day and with some of my friends at a fitness conference, and our plane got delayed. And so we had plenty of time in the airport. And one of the girls' father-in-laws did some energy work, and she was telling us all about it. We had plenty of time to talk, and she kept stopping and saying, "Is this getting too weird? Do you think this is too weird?" We're like, "No, tell." Anyway, was like, "No, tell me more," and because it all just made perfect sense to me. It was like I was remembering things that my spirit knew. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Why would someone think that's weird?" And so, and then shortly after that, I one of my friends had an illness, and she was really doing way, way better. And I said, "What are you doing?" She kind of quietly and hesitantly said, "Well, I go to this lady." It's like she's opening her trench coat. I go to this lady. I go to this energy healer lady, and I'm like, "Oh, tell me more." And so I got an appointment with that lady. And my youngest, who was well, he's my fourth. I have five kids now, but at the time he was my youngest. He was 3 years old. And I knew something was a little off with him because he's such a darling boy, but he was really clingy on mama. And I had worked a lot during that pregnancy just because I wanted to get ahead financially, and so I didn't have to work so much after. So I had a strategy, but it was probably a dumb strategy looking back. But anyway, I felt like he came out of the womb crying, and he was like, I will not be ignored. I don't want to be ignored, because he was just in there. I'm teaching aerobics all day every day, and he's in the womb going, come on, give me a rest. Anyway, so when he came out, then he really said it. And he was a darling baby. He just wanted mommy all the time. And so I took him to this lady that my friend had told me about. And when people bring kids to me to work on, I say, well, actually, all of my people are over Zoom or phone. So I'm like, I don't need your kid there. Like, I love children, but it's it's easier for me to just talk to them spirit to spirit rather than have them try to have a small child have a conversation with me. I mean, I can do it, but I can go a lot faster if the child isn't even there. So, but anyway, I took him with me to that session, and she did some muscle testing, if your listeners know what that is, and she used my arm, but working with him. And she says, I think he has some anger at you. And I'm like, yeah, I know that intuitively. I just don't know what to do about it. And so anyway, she just cleared some things for him. And within, I don't know, it was less than 10 minutes, she says, okay, do you want to go across the room and play with those toys? And I'll work on your mommy now. And he's like, okay. He jumps off my lap, runs across like it was a big room, ran across, started playing with toys. And I was like, what did you just do? Leave. So
Cool.
yeah, and then we went to my parents for Thanksgiving a few weeks after that, and both of my parents noticed that too. They were like, "What'd you do to him? He's a different kid." I'm like, "I know. Well, I took him to this lady, and she does some energy healing." So anyway, I started learning. Her and her friend taught some classes, so I learned a lot from them, and then I started working on friends and family with just remarkable results. And I know I would notice. Can I tell you one other little experience that led me
Yes.
to when I forgot about this. It just popped in my head. I remember one week I had been really busy. I had mama guilt for working too hard. I was signed up for not working too hard, working too much. Well, probably both. I was signed up for a workshop, some kind of energy healing workshop, because I used to go to quite a few of those. And I felt like I just want to be home with my kids this week. I don't want to go, but I'm already signed up and I'm paid. I don't know if I can get my money back, and I really want to learn. I want to learn what I don't want to miss out. The FOMO was killing me. And I remember I was getting my clothes, I was doing laundry, and I had a pile of clean clothes in a basket, and I was walking through my kitchen with it, and the spirit just said, "You don't need to go. Stay home with your kids. I can teach you." Like that was the impression I got. I didn't actually hear those words, but it was so strong that I literally like I set my laundry basket down on the floor, and I'm like, "What? Say that again. What?"
Just double
So,
checking. Got to catch that.
yeah.
Make sure.
Yeah. I'm like, well, that would be awesome. Thank you. So I did not go. And then I noticed every time I was working with someone or in a session, and it was just word of mouth, like because everybody has problems, everybody has challenges in this life. So somebody would talk to somebody who was having a challenge, and they're like, hey, you should go see Carolyn. And I used to just have a home office where I do it until I kind of got too many clients. And then it got to a point where it was like, okay, I will only take people at my home if they are referred by someone I know really well.
Right. Yeah,
And
there's
then it
issues
got
with
to
that.
where, never mind, I'm not doing, I mean, I never had any negative incidences or anything, but I felt very impressed to just do phone and Zoom only. I just tried to be super open. Like, and Elle, I told you before, like, how did I distill my modality? Well, it was from two simple words. Why not? Like
Hmm.
most of the time I'd get ideas to do something, or, I think if I checked the inner lining of the lung, this could help this. Like just from nowhere, I'd get
Right.
these ideas and I'd go, can I do that? Would that work? Am I allowed
Is
to
that
do
okay?
that? I don't know. And then I just would always say, well, why not? Like I'm doing it with the intention. My intention is always for the highest good of this person. So if the good intention is behind it, I'm like, what, why not? Like the worst that could happen is it's not going to help. It's not going to work. It's not, it can do
Right.
no wrong. There's no negative side effects from
Hmm.
energy.
I think it's really interesting the like being led by that spirit to understand how to progress with that. Because I think a lot of times when people are working on intuitive development, um, classes are really expensive. Like this is not a cheap field to get into, and time consuming, and it's something that it demands a lot of you. And I had a very similar experience, kind of when I came into my gifts. It's like there was nobody doing this from a faith-based background from where I was sitting. Like it was me. It's just me and God, and like, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know where to go from here. And I feel very much the same. It was almost like if I allowed him to steer and to direct that development, it was very handpicked. It was like, okay, now this is for you, and this is for you, and this is for you, and we can let go of that. That's not necessary. Um, and I love that because God is he's the fountain of all wisdom and knowledge, right? Like he
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
source of this information, and why not get it directly from the source? We can, right?
Yeah, I love where you said you asked the question, Carolyn, is it okay for me to do that? You had some inspiration. You're like, is that okay? Because I feel like that's so relatable with my journey where that first time I felt my grandma come to me and have a conversation with me. Um, I was like, because I was in the middle of a prayer and then I felt her come visit and the spirit was like, your grandma's here, you can talk to her. And I was like, is that allowed? I can talk to her right now? Like, I know I can receive feelings from her, and I'd had thoughts come in before as well, but I didn't know I could actually like converse and have a two-way in real time conversation. I was like, I didn't know it worked that way, but if you say so, I'm not gonna argue with God. So, all right, I'm open to it, I guess.
Take us a little bit about how you transitioned then from kind of a general modality with this into the Simply Aligned method. Like how did you bridge that? Because it's a bit different. Energy work is a really broad category. There's a lot of
Yeah.
different ways people do this, all the way from like EPT and the body code and other like smaller modalities. Everybody kind of has their own way of functioning within that. How did you transition into creating what you have today?
I didn't set out to go, wow, I'm going to teach classes. I actually was the first lady I learned from. I actually did teach her classes for a couple of years. But then I started learning things kind of on my own. And I went to her and I said, um, I learned this thing. It works really well to do it this way or this way. And she's like, don't put any of it in my stuff. But if you want to do a separate class, a separate additional advanced class or whatever you can. And I'm like, okay. So I did it. And then I started having more people sign up for that than for the other classes I was teaching. And that was
That's
kind of my
awkward.
clue. Like, plus I had a lot of clients saying, can you teach me what you do? And I honestly did not know. Like I didn't know because I see things in my mind's eye, and it took me a long time to like use what I have because I see them kind of cartoony, and I'm like, oh, that's silly, like get away. I'm trying to work here. And then I realized, oh my goodness, pay attention to that. That's it. Of course, it's going to be silly and cartoony because that's how I am. I'm not going to get some big serious thing because that's not my personality. God speaks to us in our own language. And so I'd take it to prayer and say, am I supposed to teach this? Should I teach this? I don't really want to teach this because I was afraid that should I just say it out loud on the podcast? I was afraid the lady I originally learned from would think I was stealing her work, which my
Right,
work was so different from her. I mean, and it had some similarities, but all energy work has some
right.
similarities. So I had not used a lot and brought in mostly my own stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be accused of that. That's
Right.
not anyway. And so I just kept putting it off and I was busy. And I was working at a spa resort in southern Utah, and so I would every Wednesday night I do an infotainment, like Energy Healing 101 workshop. And sometimes depending on how many guests we had that week, sometimes we'd have like 60 something people in a class, and then they'd sign up with the concierge for an appointment with me during the next couple days. I had a really cool little office out there. But anyway, I was driving home one night from just a couple days of working nonstop. I was hungry, I was tired, so that probably added to it. And I'd been working, just doing sessions straight through, like from 8 a.m. till it was probably about 7 o'clock at night. I was driving home and I lived about 40 minutes from the spa. And I was praying to Heavenly Father while I was driving my car with my eyes open, while I was driving my car. And
Safe on the
it
road.
just happened that week that we had there was so much trauma. Like, I mean, these people are grown up now and they can afford to come to a spa for a week. So, but they tell me their story of stuff, just issues in their tissues that have been in there their whole life that they're masking and trying to hide. But it's so, it's like trying to hold a beach ball underneath the water at a swimming pool. Have you ever done it? And then you finally let it go and it's like, oh man, that was taking a whole bunch of energy that I didn't even know. So it was those kind of sessions, a whole bunch of like just heartbreaking things that people were telling me that, I mean, I felt good because we can help clear the energy that's stuck on those. But so as I'm talking to Heavenly Father about this, I'm like, it just seems like the ratio of light workers, which meaning anybody doing, good kind of work, light workers to the trauma that's in this world is just, it seems like the ratio's off. And I was pulling up to a stoplight and I just felt through my whole being, that's why you need to teach this. And I just had to stop and stare into the dark night. There was nobody around me, thank goodness, and the light turned green. And I remember this. I remember I was still sitting there, like going, oh, because my brain was figuring it, unwinding what, because I had been thinking for about a year. And every time someone says, can you teach me this? My ego was in there going, I don't know. Is this my own special stuff? Is this my own gift? Can I teach it to other people? Could other people learn it? Is that just my ego that wants to be the teacher? Like I didn't know. And I had all my own reasons that I was
Right.
keeping it. Yeah, when I wrote my manual, uh I'm like, okay, how do I write this? And so a lot of it got distilled, a lot of my modality got distilled as I had to put it in steps. My class was a couple of weeks away, and I had been very busy because we all have busy lives. And I'm like, I have got to finish my manual. Like, I haven't sat down and really uh, planned it out. I know all my stuff, but I need to have a manual for them to have and to go through. Um, and I was supposed to teach at church that Sunday. This was on a Thursday. And that Sunday I was supposed to teach at church. And then the class was the following Saturday. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get my Sunday lesson. I'm just going to do my Sunday lesson first and let the chips fall where they may, even though
Been
this
there.
is the only free evening
So
I
been there.
have. I got to do my manual. I know. So I put God first. I put that lesson first. And I remember I was sitting in a bathtub reading the lesson. And which is weird. I'm like, well, I thought I had the time to take a leisurely bath. But anyway, um, and the lesson was all about keep it simple, the four principles. Just just teach the basics. Teach the basics. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this church lesson that I'm preparing is exactly what I needed to know for my manual that I'm making." Thank you.
That's a cool
Okay.
synchronicity.
Yeah.
I know.
Love that. While you were talking, I had a little nudge to ask about, or to bring up the topic maybe of you hit a little bit on like, can I teach this? Is this just my thing? Like, is this just my gift? Or can other people teach this? And I think a lot of people have that question. Like, can I learn it? Is this a learned skill? Or is this something intrinsic to what I have? And I think the answer is both. I
Mhm.
think with spiritual gifts like that, I think we all come into this life with some, but we're supposed to seek after all of them, right? According to Paul in Corinthians. And so it's like, do just do like go for it and ask for it. It's the gift of healing. And you may not have, I don't know. I feel like there's a balance that's struck here with maybe something that's intrinsic to you, but also just the mechanics of how this can work. Everybody can be a healer. Everybody can like know the basics about it and facilitate that to some degree with the people around them. And what if we all did? Like, how amazing of a world would we live in if we all
Yeah.
did, right?
I think going back to what you were saying about ego, we don't want to let our egos get in the way of, what if I'm not very good at it? Or what if other
Right.
people in the class are better than me? Like they're more like naturally gifted. And so maybe I shouldn't like even like imposter syndrome. I don't even belong, or how dare I? And
Right.
I love that quote that says, we came into this world as spiritual beings having a worldly experience. We are entitled to um, receive spiritual gifts and to like grow in them. That's another reason we're here. And so, I mean, I know for sure, like with my own development with spirit communication, I'm not naturally the most clairvoyant person. And there was a couple of girls in my class that are very clairvoyant. So when we're doing a session with somebody, they're like, I'm saying this, I'm saying that. And I'm like, I'm saying not very much. I don't know. But I'm a feeler. I get most of my information through thoughts and feelings. I do get images. But just maybe not at the rate that maybe other people get images. So it's okay. Like we all have our own way of assimilating information. And I think that we should honor, like you said, your imagery was kind of cartoonish because it was playful and that's your personality. We need to honor like our own unique way of getting information and being okay with that. We can always grow, and I can work on my clairvoyance and expanding that. But we don't need to go into it from standpoint of shame, maybe more curiosity.
That's a really
Yeah.
important thing I want to hit on too. With my classes, that's like the number one obstacle people hit. Like
Mhm.
when people are coming into learning anything with intuition, it's like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not meant to do this? What if I don't have it? Like it's just I don't have it. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Play with it. Just experiment. Like set that ego aside and just experiment and see what happens.
I think also in a lot of religions, especially mine, um, there's a fear of being deceived. Like
Right?
outside, like I have people from all walks of life come to my classes, and I notice Christians usually have a little more hesitancy because
Mm-hmm.
people who people who aren't, I've had Hindus, atheists, all sorts of people, because I'm teaching from a scientific standpoint, and anybody can learn the mechanics of this. So but I notice people who are Christian tend to have that extra fear of, I've heard about being deceived. I've seen people who have been deceived. I don't want to be deceived. So it holds them back a little bit from just opening the door a little wider, like trusting yourself. And the spirit can or the dark side, as I call it, because I don't like to give them any airtime, say the name, but the dark side can mimic a lot of things, but that peace, it can't mimic that pure peace
Yeah.
when you know you're on the right trail, you're on the right track. So I tell people just start out with little things.
For a second, you mentioned the science of it. Can you just give us a very brief, like 2 to 3 minute lesson, if possible, on the
I think
science of
5
this?
is fine too.
5 to 7, whatever comes. But it's just for our viewers or listeners to hear like the science behind energy healing. I think that'd be really helpful.
I believe there's a God. I believe he created this world. I believe every universe has to have certain laws, like to run the law of gravity, the law of cause and effect, the law of thermodynamics. There's certain laws, there's frequencies, there's vibrations. Everything is energy, like our bodies, my computer, everything, and we're just dense forms of this matter, this energy. Um, and so if everything's energy, then can't we, aren't our messages and our thoughts energy? Like, I know you guys like near death, so do I. Uh, well, don't like it, but like to hear the stories from it. And everything's telepathic. And I'm like, yeah, well, isn't it on this world too? Like I've always felt like it was on this world too. Um, like I've said that to people and they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, Well, we can always feel, we can always sense and feel. Like we have all this miles and miles of nervous system energy. We're always picking things up. We're always taking it off. You can tell if you walk in a room and there's been an argument, not even by body language. You can feel it, right? You can go looking for houses with a realtor and go, I don't like the feel of this one. Or, oh, this feels like home. Like, what
Mhm.
is that? What is that? That's the
Mhm.
vibrations. That's the
Mhm.
that's all frequency. Nowadays, there's instruments that can actually calibrate that. Like I recently just talked all about this on one of my podcast episodes, but and I didn't go super into at all the studies about it, but in the Western world, it used to be thought of, the Chinese acupuncture system,
Mhm.
meridians, which are flows of energy under our skin. That used to be kind of like I rolled at. But now there's actually, they can calibrate that. There really is energy moving under the skin. There's actually hot spots and cold spots and things that happen. There's Kirlian photography. We can take a picture of your aura, of the energy around you. Like we talk about in my church a lot that talk about the countenance and the shine. I'm like, that's the vibration coming off that person.
Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
different words, just different words.
exactly.
There's 7 energy systems, and the most well-known ones are aura, like I just said, our aura, the meridian system, and the chakra system, the grid, like all of that, and it all like um, I was saying how it used to be poo-pooed in our society, and now
Yeah.
they're finding they can find there are actual um, they can actually see it with instruments now.
Yeah. Science is catching up.
I love generational work. Like sometimes, uh, oftentimes you can feel the ancestors come right in, but you don't need to have them there. It's like what I'm working on. I'm not working on the dead ancestors. I'm working on this person, the
Mhm.
Right.
client, and they have stuff that they have inherited. And I did this like 20 years before science ever came out, before all the magazines and everything came out with,
Epigenetics.
oh, we can
Yeah.
inherit things from our great grandma. I'm like, really? Who knew?
I have a question for you though. You said 20, 30 years ago when you started doing this work, the ratio of healers to hurting people with trauma was so unbalanced. But have you, how do you feel like that is now? Because I mean, the people that I follow on Instagram are all about like collective consciousness and healing and trauma, and they're like
Love and
holistic
light.
therapists. Exactly. And so I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of surrounded by like-minded people that are interested in a variety of modalities to heal and to like just awareness. Spiritual awareness is kind of a hype
Trendy.
thing right now. It's trending.
Yeah.
So have you noticed that like there's more positive reception to your work, or what have you noticed in the past 30
How's
years?
the
How have
field
things
changed?
shifted? Yeah.
When I started, I was just trying to pray and get answers how to do it. And people were like, you can't do that like that. Nobody's done it like that. And I'm like, watch me. And so, that just gave me a little fire in my belly in a good way to go, I think I can. Why not? Why not? And so, for me, I feel like it used to be people were more, oh, I've never heard of this before. I've never known anybody who does this. Tell me more. I want to get by you. I want to hear everything you have to say. I want to pick your brain. And now, I mean, and both ways are fine. And now it's kind of like, okay, I'll go look that up online. Or I'll
Hmm.
go, you know what I mean? There's more, it's
Access.
not such a weird thing. So in a good way, it's not such a weird thing. And I feel like from the beginning, from the time I wrote my manual, I took it to God and prayed on it and asked him to bless it. Ooh, I just said that out loud. And I also asked him to protect me because
Yeah.
I didn't want this powerful information getting in the wrong hands. I didn't know who was going to come and learn it, what they were going to do with it, and I felt very assured, and this is how it's always been, is that if they don't have the right intention, this work is null and void. At least my Simply Align work. Like if somebody tries to use this in a negative way, it won't work. Just put your trust in God, have an eye single to that, and just try to help your fellow man. And it doesn't matter what anybody on the outside say. I remember one of my mom's friends once saying, somebody was saying something. My mom and her friend were both married to chiropractors, and this was way back when people thought they were weird and insurance wouldn't cover them and all that. And somebody was saying something really negative about chiropractic. I don't know why I remember this. I was a little kid, and I didn't even know what these words meant probably at the time. But my mom's friend just looked at him and said, "Are you prejudiced or just uninformed?"
That's kind of my modus operandum too, is like my theory behind it is if you feel the light and if you are giving the light, other people will feel that too. But I
Yeah.
might steal that line. Are you prejudiced or just uninformed?
I love that.
I love that a lot.
Different people have different life experiences that either
Right.
help them be more open to it or less open to it. And the
Right.
less open is most of the time it's just fear.
It's
It's some
fear. This is so
Yeah.
relevant. I had a friend who grew up in the Bible Belt, and just like a few weeks ago, she texted me, and she's like, "We can't be friends anymore. I've done some more research into what you do for work, and it just doesn't align with like." I think it's like bad. It's very fear based. And I said, well, if you want to be informed about how I practice my spiritual gifts, you can check out my podcast. That really, it's coming from a faith based perspective. But I think she just was like, blanket statement, this is all bad. I want to be so far from it, because she was misinformed and she was letting fear, take the reins.
And there is definitely an element of packaging involved. I mean, I will say all the time that it's a tool and it can be used by somebody one way and by somebody else a completely different way. And it's actually in the use of it that matters, not in what the tool itself is, the baby in the bathwater situation.
Yeah.
But how we're presenting and how we're educating this information is really important.
Right. And I think we can't win them all. Like, there's not going to be, some people will just not accept this work as valid or
Real.
correct. And so you just, like you said, Carolyn, having a thick skin and giving people grace for their perceptions, but moving forward also with trust. This is the path that I've been put on, and I'm just going to move forward, whether or not everyone agrees with me or not.
But I've worked on some awesome, like I've got a lot of male clients that are great and they totally get it. Women tend to be a little more into on the intuitive side than men are. So, but I have had sessions with men that I'll just say it right out loud because I'm like, let's not dance around the elephant in the room. So I'll just say, I can feel a little skepticism, and that I just want you to know that's okay. And then, like, they know you can feel that from them, and they're like, "Oh,
what else can she pick up on?"
But I'll just tell them I can feel a little skepticism. I just want you to know that that is totally fine. Like that kind of is your safety net to allow yourself to even be here. So if you want to keep a
Right.
little bit of that as we go along, I'm totally fine with that. I just want to say, and then they usually, man, you can feel them just relax, like as soon as you say
Like,
that. But then also on the flip side of that, if someone's very adamantly against it, um, I just think we shouldn't cast our pearls before swine. It's like, oh, that's okay. I can still love them. Like I can still
mhm.
love that person because I understand they haven't had the same experience as I have. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's all good. And hopefully they love me back and go, well, she hasn't had the same experience as I have had. So hopefully it's
Yeah.
reciprocal.
Yeah.
I think, and I know we've talked about this before, Carolyn, when you are moving into a work like this, you must live above the bar. Like there is a standard of character and you have to even be beyond that. Like it's really important to be the kind of person that represent the values that you hold if you move into this. So that when those people have problems with what you're doing, particularly people like that poor woman in the Bible study, it's like, well, when you fall back on, look, this is who I am, and you know who I am. You know the kind of person I am. You know the values that I hold and the things that I believe, and that testimony is impeachable. That is what I am, and that is what I bring to the table. So we can disagree all we want on what this aspect is, but know who I am is just it's still who I am.
Yeah. By their
That
fruits you shall know them.
Yeah.
exactly.
And like I'm human, I have times where once in a while I'll go, like Elle, I think you call it a check-in.
Yep.
I'll go, am I still okay? Is this, am I still going forward with this? Is this still right? And my husband's a really great support. He's always like, it is. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, I know you think that, honey. Thank you. I appreciate it. want God to reassure me one more time. But almost always if I have a thought like that, it's like within a day or two, I'll get like a super nice email, or I'll run into somebody that I don't even remember who they are, but she'll remind me that I worked on her many years ago, and this is what's happened to her family since, or her something physical cleared up. And it's like, thank you. Like if you kind of ask for that check-in,
Yeah.
I don't always immediately get him saying, "Yes, Carolyn, you're okay." No, he'll send other people to me
Yeah.
to
Mm,
a little snippet, a little message, and then I'm like, okay.
The earthly angel
that
kind
is
of
so
situation.
relatable. Yeah.
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 I have that all the time too. I call myself the needy child. I'm like, all right, God, are you still sure? It's like, I just need that validation right now. I'm trying. I'm doing my best here, but
Yeah.
like sometimes I just need to know. And most of the time I'll have a similar situation I'll have like an amazing session with someone where at the end they're like, "You've changed me. Like, thank
Mhm.
you. I sat here with my child who I have lost and it has changed my grief. Like it has made me realize and believe, like they're still here with me." And I'll have something like that. And then I'll just like close the Zoom call and I'll sit back and go, it's all real. Thank
Phew.
you, God. Like, proof is in the pudding. It really is. If you stand back and let it happen through you, God is
Yeah.
in all of it.
Yeah, like
I
you said,
really think
Carolyn, in
that.
your podcast, we're not the faucet. We're not the water, we're just the faucet,
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes you see teachers who think they're the water, and it's like,
Yeah.
that this isn't the right fit for me. I think it's easy to fall into ego and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you're having these fabulous experiences and feeling like people are thanking you for helping them, and it's like I try to keep everything really low key. Like it's not. I'm just the faucet. I'm
Hmm.
only
Yeah.
a helper. I'm
You're
only a
just
facilitator.
tapping into the energy field that's already there.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Doing a work that's been designed by someone that's not me. It's just handed to me. Thank you so much for your time, Carolyn. It's been a joy.
Yeah, it's so
Loved
much
every
fun.
minute of it.
Yes,
No.
thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure, totally.
How do they find you, Carolyn?
The best place to find me is actually just on my website, simplyalign.com. Like I have a free little what you were talking about, your gifts and different ways of gifts. I have a free 5-part email course about, it doesn't teach energy work. It just talks about your gifts and how to not be afraid of them. Um, And my podcast is Catching Sunshine. Catching Sunshine, which actually I'm a high performance coach too, so that kind of goes more along with my coaching. But I have recently added a couple episodes in about energy healing. So it's my common denominator, whether it's coaching or healing or whatever. It's all in the same big delicious soup for
I love
me.
I love that. Again, thank you so much, Carolyn. You guys feel free to follow if you have not already followed or liked the podcast. Feel free to reach out. We have our website, which is throughtheveilepodcast.com, if you'd like to learn more about Camille or I, and you can find links to our own website there as well. If you haven't joined the Facebook group already, you should do that as well. It's a great place to collect with like-minded people and learn more about your own gifts.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye.